All right, we got Mercury in the fifth house. So, Mercury in the fifth house. Mercury is the planet of communication and your thinking process, right? How you think about things. You know, are you great at communication? Do you internalize it? Take information in, question it, then pose questions to other people. More constructive thinker. Are you more of a visualizer? You more of a get information out to people as soon as you get it. That would be somebody who has like more wind. Somebody who's more structurally thinker is more of an earth, you know, Mercury sign, and somebody who's like more visualizer is a fire sign. Somebody who thinks deeply is a water sign, right? And the Mercury sign. So we got Mercury in the fifth house. The fifth house is house of entertainment, joy, recognition, and in this house also recognition, joy, entertainment, that kind of shit. But if you have planets in this house, you're likely to have kids. Um, Highly more likely to have children in this life. So if you have it there, I always tell you guys, you know, so you people, make sure you're ready for that. That being said, we have Aries in the fifth house. Aries Mercury in the fifth house. This person speaks directly, powerfully, has an authority when they speak. When they speak, right, you hear them. You know what the fuck they're saying. They're loud about what they need to say. And when they're like talk, typically it's something important. But sometimes they're trying to like bring people's spirits up too, as it's in the fifth house. So like they speak to bring people's energy up, to get things going, to make things more fun for the people they care about. But they are quick thinkers too, so they know how to come up with a plan fast and execute fast on a plan. And that's how these people are. People like being around them for their like quick thinking. Anytime we need to do something, they'll know what to do right away. They're like, oh, this is what we gotta do. Let's do this. And they usually have fun with those people. People that they're close with. Friends, family, all that shit. Um, they could get into arguments with people from time to time. Raising their voice louder and shit if they feel like they ain't being heard. But this person's definitely heard though, because they have a voice of authority. That's what Aries is: energetic, loud. You know what the fuck they said. So they might actually get angry because you know what the fuck they're about, and you're still playing games. You know, that's for people who ain't in their circle, but people in their circle love them because they're loud and they're direct, and that you know what they're about. They don't hide shit too much. So they love that about them. Their forwardness. Their straightforwardness is not looked down upon, it's actually praised in their relationship. And this person may have children too. They find somebody who's like cool with that, straightforwardness, that directness that they have, and this person sees a way out of shit, out of a bad situation. Challenges appear, they think of a way out, they act on it. They think of a way out. It's quick thinking. It's not anything that's slow. Next sign on the list is Taurus Mercury in the fifth house. Taurus Mercury, they're more, calm, but not calm structurally sound in the mind. Mentally strong, consistently working on themselves. They like to fix situations too, right? They like to help other people out. They like to think of solutions, like real solutions to problems in um, their life. People in their life. They depend on these people. Um, They're grounded when they think they know what the fuck's going on in the world. They know what moves to make based on you know whatever their family, their circle, whatever they're trying to accomplish. You know, consistency is and impatience is something that these people have. They'll let people talk. That's what that means. They'll let other people get their point across, and then they will present what they need to present. Right? They'll be grounded. They'll be sound in what they have to say. This means you know what the fuck they're about. You explained yourself. They allowed you to explain yourself because these people aren't the ones to speak first. They're the ones to. They're more of listeners. They take information in, think about it, and then give a response. Right? These people are not thinking problems, but they think things through. Now, this person is kind of stubborn though, in that they have a fixed way of thinking, but that's not a bad thing because what they're trying to do isn't what other people are trying to do. So, oh well, what they're trying to actually accomplish, they know how to like sift through the bullshit. Like, okay, so if you told them something, right, and that's why they like to listen to people, like, hear them out first. Okay, you said this and that, but your actions don't match up, or you're doing something that is completely not what I'm trying to do. So I'm not going to listen to you. And it's for them, it's for their security. It keeps their mind, fixed on what it needs to be fixed on. They will take information and they will listen to people. They will. But only the people, right, that have what they need or are on similar type of shit that they're on, they'll take their information in and implement that and then stay consistent with like how they do things. They stick to a routine. They do. you know um and then again, they're patient in the conversation. They can wait until somebody else is done and then speak. They can even put their foot down if like they didn't get enough time to speak. You've spoken already. You gotta let me get my point across too, and then we can have a conversation back and forth. you know People in their life like them for their strong mind. you know I can come to this person with like real issues, or whenever I need to think something through, and like a real, like, does this make sense kind of thing. This person knows if something makes sense or not. No, that doesn't make sense. Don't fucking do it. Stay the fuck away from that. These people will tell them that, you know, and they do. They're sensible people when they think, you know, they don't do the fucking nonsense. And people appreciate them for that. These people will probably have some children too, and they'll use that like sensibleness and that grounded thinking in their like raising of their children. So their children will like have sense, be more realistic about things, even if they ain't. They like remember what this person taught them. And shit. This next sign is Gemini Mercury in the fifth house. So Gemini Mercury, you have a great communication skills, boy, girl. You You have Mercury, Gemini in the fifth house. You know how to communicate with just about anyone. Friends, family, strangers. Don't matter. You got that. And people like you for that. You go out and you actually, mingle with people, and you know what's going on in the area because of that. You know what's on people's mind because of that. You know, you're fun to talk to. People love to, talk to you too. um, the people who are around you. See, you have it in the fifth house of people. That's why people come to you to talk to you. They know you like to talk. They know you like to talk about this and that. You know, they know you have something on your mind. You're willing to, tell them shit and other things, and you are. You know, you ain't a person who can just, stay like you ain't like a Taurus Mercury or somebody who has a Taurus Sun, right? Who can like stay fixated on like something. right? You have to like try new things, and that's a good thing too. You're because like that shows that you're willing to like learn shit, and like people like that about you. You know, you keep your mind open to like new information every like, but not like you know, like all the time. So like it's always something new with you. And then the people who like you in life and like that part of you will stick around, and they're like, man, what did you learn today? You know, so and so. You know, lay it on me, da, 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 and you just have amazing conversations, and people love being around you, talking to you. You know, being quick to change up is a good thing. You can adapt. That's a great thing that they people see in you and they appreciate about you. You know, and that's why they stick around. You know, you offer them some new information. You offer them new conversations. You know, you could be a Taurus with this Mercury sign or a Cancer with this Mercury sign, and it still works in your favor that way. You know, you're still thinking like that. You know, talking to people is not something you shy away from. And you probably have kids too. You encourage them to speak to you about shit before anything. You know, come to mommy, come to daddy about anything. You better fucking run that by me first. You know, that kind of thing. You know, and you're one of those kind of people when you have kids. Now, Mercury in Cancer in the fifth house, Mercury in Cancer, you really care deeply about your family members, you know, and people who care about people have like compassion, have, you know, like just care about people on a deeper level. You know, this is a human being, this is a person who's, you know, come from something and became, you know, what I see now, you know, that kind of thing. You know, they like to, you know, move people emotionally with how they say things. You know, how they say things to people really makes their life better. Um, like when you talk to somebody, right? Let me say this. When you talk to somebody, it makes them feel like you make them feel like they're important. Like, okay, you know, my being like being me, you know, I'm important to you. You know, of course I like being around you. You make me feel important. You actually listen because like this is a introverted sign in the Mercury sign, so you actually listen to what people are going through or whatever. You know, you like being around those kind of people who care about other people. You know, don't just dismiss people or you don't necessarily care if somebody's smart or whatever. It's like the fact that you're there and you're present. You are somebody who can have deep conversations about life, not just surface level shit, right? You can also tell when somebody you care for is in a bad way. Let's say that they're lying about shit. And they're like, I'm okay today. It's all right. And you're like, no, I know when you're feeling, you know, when you're on, you know, you're feeling good. You're feeling like you can do something. But you know, today you kind of, you know, ain't, you know, you, yeah. And you're like, you ask again, you'll be like, what's going on? Yeah. And it's just because you care deeply about that person. You don't just do that to everybody though. With other people, it's more like you listen to what they tell you, and like you process that information, you know, and you're like intuitive about it though. So what does this mean? You have a high EQ, emotional intelligence. This person has a high emotional intelligence. This is one of the signs that has high emotional intelligence. And one of the highest. So they know going into a situation if it's gonna be some like bullshit or not, based off of how they feel. You know, deeply moved by what they've said and shit. Okay, they said this, and you know they're moving like this, and the kind of vibes I'm getting from them, I'm like, ugh. I don't know if I want to like stick around this person or not. You know, but if it's somebody you care for, right? Because and this is why people like you, right? You know, because it's in the fifth house, and they like to be around you. You know, you can tell when something's wrong with them, and you try to like hash that shit out with them. You try to make them feel better because you know this that will fuck with your mental state. If somebody you care for and you see on a regular basis is around you and they're negative, that's gonna take its toll on you, and you're gonna then be negative thinking. You're gonna be more in a bad mood, and you will be making the situation even worse. So you approach the situation and you might be a little more like, hey, do you want to, figure this shit out with you? What do you want me to do to help make your situation better? That kind of thing. You're very supportive, and people like you for that. You're more open to talk to like the people you care for. Not just everybody though. Other people you'll listen to them and just you'll be kind and whatever, but you won't stick around that because that energy is just gonna fuck with you, and you basically take on the emotions of other people too sometimes. But with that being said, you can also change another person's mood from being negative to positive. If you're in a positive mood and you're trying to actually be there for somebody now, and you definitely have kids too with displacement. So we as kids too. um Now, Leo. Now, no, Leo in the fifth house. Leo, Mercury in the fifth house. You are a loud person too. You like to know, like you like to let people know what the fuck you're about. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. If you're fucking with me and you're in my friend group, this is what we're gonna do and we're gonna have fun with. This is what we like and this is what I don't like, and you'll know that I don't fucking like it. I'll yell at you. I'll be like, hey man, why are you doing this? I don't do that. I don't. I had the decency to tell you that, I'm like, a guy you gotta respect for that. I let you know. Other people might not, but I do. They have a forwardness about them, but it's like, they have a vision that they like, you know, they can help people lift their spirits up too. They like when they come into a room, they're like magnetic. People know about them. They know, oh, there's so and so. What's he gonna get us into today? What's she gonna get us into today? You know, you can't really hide yourself from people. So you present yourself in a fun, playful manner. You're a very creative person, so you know how to like make the most out of the shit you like. So what I'm saying here is a Leo is a fixed fire sign, right? So you ain't so quick to move on to like some newer type of, entertainment. You get the most out of that kind of entertainment. So let's say you're into like DC and Marvel's comics. You get the most out of that before you even decide to move on to like anime. And like about that shit too because people that you fuck with like it. But then you like, more so talking about the Marvel and DC aspects of things. And you like get them involved with it. It ain't no fucked up shit. It's like, hey man, I know you like anime and stuff, but look at this, um, this person does similar to things to that person, and then you like hook them in, and you get them starting to like do more of those kind of things. But like over time you can then be like, hey, I heard this about anime and stuff, what the fuck's that about? I think I might like that character because it reminds me of the character from um this world, you know but you, unlike other fire signs, you will like I say, you make the most of the shit you like. You ain't so quick to move on to something else. You can take some time to like basically like milk it for what it is or whatever, and then eventually you'll be like, okay, I can move on and like try, or um like I'll still like that, but like I can expand my horizons type shit. and that's what you do, and people like you for that, and you're like, that's my friend who likes or likes this kind of thing. I love being around him. He tells me or she tells me all kinds of stuff about that. We have great conversation and everything. Um, and they're just a fun vibe to be around. When I feel like shit, I just want to go to him or her and just like talk about all that stuff. Um, and then if you have kids as a Leo Mercury, and then this is the thing about Leo Mercury, right? You could be a Virgo with this placement, or you could be a Cancer with this placement as well. Either way, people still like you because when you're around the people, your friends, your family, you get to being loud and um, exciting about the shit you love, and that brings out positive energy in them, and you just a good vibe to be around. But if you have kids, they like you too. They probably call you a fun parent, you know. But your parents are like you know how to be that way, but then also be loud and tell them, "Hey, you're not fucking doing that. This house." And you'll tell them like that. You'll be loud and like fucking, put your foot down powerfully with your voice. They'll be like, "Damn, mommy, daddy got angry." They'll know that. Now, next sign is Virgo Mercury in the fifth house. Virgo Mercury in the fifth house. This person thinks deeply. They like to analyze shit. They take information in first, and then they deliver the information what they've taken in from the environment. Certain people's behaviors, what people are wearing. You know, little details that you don't pick up on. You know, they know that shit, and it's just natural for these people. They just fucking know it. It's just like always on their mind. The little things matter. And like when this person, right, decides they want to like have fun and shit, god damn, they like think of everything. They do everything to the best of their ability. So if they know you like something, they get you a gift or something, they make sure it's like shit that you've told them. Like, I know this person likes this or that. I know they like these specific shoes. And like I know their foot's this specific size, even though they try to tell me it's this size. And they get you like let's say like for me, right? I'm a guy that's like 11 and a half, but like I'll wear shoes that are 12s just to like rock for the aesthetics. This person's like, nah, man, I got you with your 11 and a half. Like I'll take my time to find that shit for you. But they won't just do that. This is an earth sign. This is somebody who's uh, you know, has mental fortitude. You gotta like be their friend and shit. Actually like take their advice. When they want you to like improve yourself. And they see that you're like implementing what they have told you into your life. They're like, okay, this is my friend and shit. They might do something like that for you. Come your birthday or some shit. To let you know that they appreciate you and they actually like being around you. They appreciate that you've listened to them, and then you as a friend, they also expect you to hold them to their shit. you know they have a certain routine, they have this and that. You better like they'll respect shit like that, um because they're usually the ones to like pick up on little details and shit, right, about things. But if you're then their friend for a while and you're picking up on shit that they're doing wrong, or things they might need to improve upon, they'll respect that. Because most people don't fucking, eat calls to the, like, small details and, like, you know, and, like, knowing that somebody's, actually using their brain, that's a cool thing to Virgo Mercury. So these people are fun to be around, and they, when they get to having fun, they, think of every little detail to make a fun environment, a fun moment for, them and their friends. they know about different people in the friend group, different people in their family, how they'll be, oh, if this happens and this person's gonna be happy, but this person's not gonna be happy. But if we change this about some things, we can make it fun for everyone. And they make a plan, they strategize. You People love them for that. They like being around them and knowing that they're like that. You know, these are like some really fucking smart people. You know, but you got kids. You're gonna make sure they're on their p's and q's. Little Johnny, little fucking Patricia. You dotting your i's, you're crossing your t's. You're making sure everything's right. You're doing everything to the best of your ability because you weren't brought into this life to do shit half-assed. So you're gonna do the shit to the best of your ability, and they appreciate that. People who have this person in their life. Now, next person is Libra Mercury in the fifth house. Libra Mercury in the fifth house. This person, right? Libra Mercury. This person knows how to talk to people and get results with people. So like get information out of people. They know how to talk, make you, feel like a friend, even if you're not their friend. And they can talk to just about anyone. Cool, calm, and collected. You know, they like to, talk in the conversation. They like to lead the conversation, but they, let, they more than the other ones as they allow another person to, get their, what they need to say across too. And it's like, really great conversations they can have with people. You know, people like them for that. You're giving me a new perspective on things. Giving me new information that maybe I didn't know. Let's say that this person just knows how to like tell it to you in a way that's like not making you feel like an idiot or making you feel like this or that. They consider shit like that a little more. If I come across like, because like if I'm trying to deliver information, right, I don't want this person to right think that I'm calling them stupid or this or that, um but here's what it is, da, 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 and they let you know what's going on. They know how to like not make you feel dumb, feel stupid. You're just another person. I want to give you this information. What I want you to do with that, that's on you and other things. But, I'm telling you out of the goodness of my heart. And, I just like to, tell you, people like to, talk to these people. They know they can come to these people, you know, to talk about anything, if they're their friends and shit. Because these people love being around people. And they do. So they're that person that they call on to like talk to about all kind of shit. Oh my God, this happened to me, and da 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 da, da. And they have conversations about what's going on in other people's lives, and then they learn about what's going on in other people's lives, and they're like, oh shit, I know what's going on with my friend this, my friend that, my mom, my brother. You know, they don't really hate that. They really don't. It's like how they've always been. They're just kind of programmed to, or their mind works in that kind of way to like want to consider what other people are having to say, and they ain't afraid to take that first step, is what I'm saying, and like initiate the conversation because that's cardinal win. You know, they like to do that, so they lead a conversation, but they still let you, get your points across, and maybe move them, because like if we're having a great conversation and you bring up great points, you're opening me up to like something I never thought of before as the Libra Mercury, right? And people like that about you, you know. Out of all the wind signs, that's the one that can like do that kind of thing. they can talk first, and then listen to what the other person has to say, fully, and then and respect them for their differences, or if they come to certain agreements, that's cool too. And like people like that about this person, they really they really like them for that, and that's why I mean by they'll come to this person first because they know this person's good to talk to. They'll bring a new perspective to like what my problem is, whatever my problem is. They can answer that for me, and then they will actually let me talk to these people love gossip and shit too, but they have kids. They have kids. They will, obviously need, them to understand to cooperate with, people, the people in your life that are important. Family first, of course. Probably if they're, teaching their kids right, and then like also go out and don't be afraid to like talk to people. If there's somebody over there and he's alone or she's alone, don't be afraid to ask him something or her something and be like, are you all right? That kind of thing, and they instill that in the kids because they themselves are like that. Now the next sign is Mercury in Scorpio in the fifth house. Mercury and Scorpio in the fifth house. This person, they think deeply about things. They see, they know that life throws curveballs and shit's not always pretty. Um, they know that people are driven by their desires deep down. And sometimes these desires, it could come at a cost. Whatever. But are you willing to go forward in life and do those kind of things? You know, make the hard decisions to fucking make your life happen. That kind of thing. You know, these people like to more so observe, right? Because this is Scorpio. Observe and then make comments as needed. But like they're powerful when they speak too, right? Because they don't talk too much. It's like they're intuitive, so they can tell if like somebody's gonna listen to them when they speak or what they ain't. You know, if I want to even open my mouth to this person or not, I'll just listen to this person talk, and I'll slowly find out what they're about because like I already know, right, how they're making me feel from being around them. I know how they're making me feel. If I want to like beat their ass, or if I want to like, okay, this person might be cool or whatever. Let me see what he has to say. And they like are good listeners, somewhat. If they ain't letting their like feelings get in the way of because like they're moved by their emotions, and they are. And this is fixed emotions, so certain things you say will like really like trigger them and make be like, oh, so you like that. I don't think I should tell you too much. I'll just, I'll keep it, I'll keep it at this, and you can go your way, and I'll go my, just be away from me, because I don't need that kind of energy around me. I'm after specific things. I like deeper conversations about things. I like people who don't lack depth, and have a soul, you know. And I've been through some things too. That's the thing too with them. I have been through some things for people who are looking to, go after what they want. They have a drive that's, like no matter what, they're gonna make their, dreams happen. I ain't gonna be around people that fucking, stupid or would listen to other people and allow them, those other people, to dictate where they fucking go. I like people who are like these people like people who are like about their shit, and don't give a fuck about other people. You know, they like they like those kind of people. This person is like goal oriented too. So like when they think about something and they have something on their mind they want to do, they're gonna fucking make it happen. Come hell or high water, they'll make that shit happen. And then like I said, these people are intuitive, so they can tell like if they like really fuck with you or anything, you don't even have to say a fucking word. They know right away if you're on some bullshit or if you ain't. And it's safe to say, this person will probably have kids too. Mercury and Scorpio person will probably have some kids. Um, and they don't play games with that. Like once they have kids, they like it's hands. You look at my kids sideways, I'm looking at you sideways, and I might even like pull the trigger on you. What's they're very protective. They because like they're a water sign too, so they understand the importance of like human life and shit. You know, they themselves can dwell on the past. Sometimes right and like really be fucked with by that. In negative ways and positive ways. They learn how to use that as fuel to like move them forward in a positive way. Let their past transform them into a person who is better than they used to be. They try not to live in the past. Certain things can trigger them to be that way, and then they can be like volatile. Some people, um, but maybe less so for the person who has a Libra sun and the Mercury and Scorpio, but more for like a Scorpio sun with a Scorpio Mercury, and then a Scorpio with or a Scorpio Mercury and a Sagittarius. They probably be more likely to do that kind of thing. But if they have kids, they're about their kids. Now, Sagittarius, Mercury in the fifth house. This person, right? Sagittarius, Mercury, you you let shit fly. You do. You tell people like it is, and you don't really sugarcoat anything. And it's for you. It's just like I have to say this. I just have to say this. And you say it to the people that you like love too. You might not tell like everybody. If they heard me or not. They heard me. People hear you, right? Because you're a fire sign, so you're loud about shit. You can't really hide anything. But you like know that too. You're like, I wasn't really trying to hide it in the first place. It's like what I do. This is it. Well, this is what it is. And da 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 da. And you'll say shit, right? Um, and people might not. They might not like that, but your friends appreciate that. They might actually find that shit funny. They will. Like, oh my god, he just told this person, this or that they were ugly and da 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 da, and they get to laughing and shit like that. And you're just like a really fun person to be around. Um, and then like you're a mutable sign too, so it's not fixed fire, or cardinal fire. It's mutable fire. So like you can adapt to situations. You like to like seek new experiences. Be around new people. You can't always be around the same fucking people. You couldn't do that. You couldn't be around your family too long. You couldn't be around these people. Don't mean you don't appreciate them, because here's the thing about that. You actually learned lessons from those people. Small things that other people don't fucking know about. But you like, you know, and you like to, you gotta explore like everything life has to offer. And that's what you are a forward thinker. Not just a forward thinker, you're a person who, and you can make, quick decisions. You know, you don't let shit slow you down. You're positive. You see opportunities in front of you and you seize them. You make that shit happen. You're a very creative person too. If people can't move at your speed, oh well. That's who you are. Um, and then you probably do have kids too, eventually. When you come across the right people and shit, you spin around for your kid, and when you spin around for your kid, you make sure you're like there and like you're positive. You ain't letting your anything that happened to you that was fucked up fuck with your relationship with your kid. You try to be that positive energy in your kid's life, that kind of thing, and you are. Like even if you ain't always there, you when you come around, you try to do that shit. So now We got Capricorn Mercury in the fifth house. Capricorn Mercury in the fifth house. This person, this person is, um, they're very structurally sound. They have mental fortitude. When they're about their business, they are about their business. They don't give a fuck about all that other stuff. They don't care about, how loud a person is. They don't give a fuck about, people's feelings. They're about the mission that they set out for themselves. You know, they're goal-driven people. So if they're goal-driven people, they like to, think things through in a realistic way. People know that when they're with this person, they may learn something. Um, they may learn a lesson in, like, discipline. This is what it looks like to not get lost in, like, foolishness. This guy, this woman is about what she's about. Like, when she says she does this kind of thing and she knows about this kind of, like, work, um, they know about what they do at their job and what their careers entail, and they, like, go through that shit. Like, they make sure they do their due diligence, that kind of thing, and they know what the fuck's going on with that. And then it's like, you know these people are like, they serve as a reminder to, like, the people who care about them, like, damn, I should be a little more like that, and I should take, my job more seriously. I should, look into my finances better. I should, um you know be more disciplined. When I don't want to do something, I just gotta, fucking do it anyway. That kind of thing. You know, and that's why people, come around you as the person who has a, Capricorn Mercury. You have that kind of solid mind. You know, you also, you know how to listen, and then, gather the information, and then from that information, what moves are, what steps are needed to be taken next for that person. So, like, they run something by you, right? And then you know what they need to do next based off the information they give you. And that's just how your mind works. You're like, okay, you told me this, you want to accomplish this. Okay, then this is your next steps. This is what you have to do. And you're like that kind of person. You won't lie to them. You're like, these are, like, challenges you might have to face. But if you stay, disciplined, consistent, you will make, you know what you need to happen. And then basically people appreciate them for that, like, honesty, and not just the honesty, but the, like, realistic outlook on life. you know you're not, you know foolish about shit. You know what's really going on out here. But, you don't also let that, drag you down. These are the real steps that need to be taken to, get something done. So this is what I'm going to do it. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's stormy. I don't care if, hell freezes over. We're doing it, like, and we're making it happen. I'm making it happen. Now, people with this placement, they take their children seriously too. If they have children, they instill, discipline in them from a young age, to make sure that, their kid is, when they leave, they know what the fuck they're supposed to do. Now, the next sign is Aquarius Mercury in the fifth house. So Aquarius Mercury, this is a exalted placement in astrology. The exaltation point of Mercury is in Aquarius. So this person knows how to think and communicate with people. They know how to network with different people to make things happen for themselves. They want to, better life. They want to, talk to, different people about ideas that they have. You know, they know that other people might not be, down to hear that, but they know that people are out there to conversate with, and people who will, like, challenge them on their opinions and shit like that. You know, but, people who agree with them, that's fine too. That's cool. But we also, they like to, know that you think for yourself, that kind of thing. and you're not just gonna like agree with me about everything. I don't like that. As somebody who has a Mercury and Aquarius placement, I don't need that. I need to know that you can think for yourself. You've read books, you've done your time, with like other people. You talk to other people and shit too. Interesting conversations, can be had from, having this placement. You talk to people about what you read in books, what you researched, what you heard from other people, and you just like giving them the facts and other things, and they're talking back and forth to you about shit, and one thing leads to another. You find out this person's cool, but you're also not a person who can like just you have that like free win too. So basically, you don't just have one kind of friend. You have friends. You're kind of like a person who can like float between friend groups and shit. This person can, but people still like you though, like the people that are you're actually cool with you. They know that you're like that. They know that okay, you need to talk to these people, and they understand that it's out of a need for like new information, and like seeking answers to questions you might have had, and like when you were with one of your friends, right, they didn't quite answer that question, so you were seeking answers elsewhere, and they understood that. They weren't gonna hate you or anything. They're just like, oh well, I don't know anything about that, but you might have to go find somebody else to talk to about that. And you weren't gonna bat an eye. You were gonna find those other people, you know and people like you for that. You don't just take shit at face value, and you're gonna like go out and do the research, go out and find people, and learn from them. And that's what people like about you. You're a friendly person. You know how to communicate well. um and if you have kids, right, you might not be the best parent, but you try to like get them to like step out of their comfort zone a little bit, or talk to people, be a little bit more like you, that kind of thing. And that way, because that communication has like helped you out a lot in your life. That's one thing that's helped you out in life, so you want to try to give that to you. And like question things, don't always accept it, that kind of thing. Now, the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces, Mercury in the fifth house. This person with Pisces Mercury isn't one to like speak right away. They'll let you talk first. These people are actually intuitive. So that means they have a high EQ. They understand that their words and how they say shit can really, lead into, it can make things happen, in a good way, or shit happen in a bad way. So how I deliver, information, how I say things, really, determine some shit, in life, and they know how to like invoke feelings in other people, move people. They're also very creative, artsy. They appreciate the arts. They, delve into arts. They're artists themselves, you know, in different ways. This could be music, this could be painting, this could be, they're into anime, other things. You know, they could be into, any kind of thing. They can make it an art and make it, very, interesting, you know. What I'm saying is when somebody else is, doing something that's boring, but when they do it, it's like fun to be around. And you like that. People like that. Friends, families, significant others, whatever. They know this person like that to be that way. Um, and they're recognized for their, creative flow, their creative ability. Pisces is the internal part of the sacral chakra, and it's the internal part of the planet of Jupiter. So it gets the true essence of what they're trying to get you to feel, get you to understand, that kind of thing. You have a deeper understanding of something because you have this person in your life. Whereas another person might just see something at surface level, they like delve deeper into things, and you then know, yeah, oh shit, it's actually deeper than what I thought it was. And this person, enlightens you to that kind of shit. But they also, like I said, they don't just, they're not always like forthcoming or like the person to like first talk. They'll listen to you first. You know, they'll listen to what you have to say first. As it, Pisces is an introverted sign. They'll listen to what you have to say first, and that's another thing people like about him. You listen to me, and then you give your take on what's going on or what you think I should do or what we should do together or whatever. People really appreciate that about him and like being around him for that. They try to invoke like positive energy flow into their friends. Words of encouragement, that kind of thing. And give them a way towards maybe them opening up their own creativity and shit. But that's this person, Pisces Mercury in the fifth house. That is Mercury in the fifth house, as told by Darius the Green Angel. Natal readings are going to be $350. That's your astrological natal reading, Western astrology, with the numerology reading attached to it. Be cool on the corner. And let me know what your Mercury sign is and if it's in the fifth house. Obviously, if you're watching this video, it's in the fifth house. So let me know what your Mercury sign is in the fifth house in the comments. Just let me know. Be like, oh, I think or you want a natal reading from me so you can get that. If you want a natal reading, I'll do that for you. But it's $350, yeah. All right, be cool on the corner.